Today's lecture is on patient collections and financial management. The medical practice as a business. Let's take a look at our medical practice as a business. And the importance of accuracy is in accounting and bookkeeping and establishing procedures for all things that are done in the office. The accounting methods can be electronic bookkeeping. It can be manual bookkeeping systems, the write it once or pegboard system. You can use forms as a daily log or journalizing or patient ledger cards. Most practices these days, if they are private, will have a bookkeeping system or a billing system separate from the office. If you're part of a bigger corporation, you won't do any bookkeeping in your office. Yale New Haven or Partners, if you're one of the clinics, you don't do bookkeeping in your office. It's done by the corporation. Bookkeeping records. We have accounts receivable and accounts payable. So accounts receivable is the money that's coming into the practice, like co-pays, all right, and insurance payments. Accounts payable are what we're sending money out for supplies, for rent, for utilities. And the record of office disbursements, we call this tracks the payee. This record of who did we pay. We keep a list of who we paid. It's like when you do your paying your monthly bills. And we keep a summary of charges, receipts, and disbursements. So we always know where the money's coming from and who it's gone out to and when. We start our business day by attaching a super bill to the patient chart. These are in-office transactions, all right? And at patient checkout, we are accepting patient payment. Now, a lot of payments are made right at the beginning of the office visit with the co-pays. And practices used to accept cash, check, credit, or debit card. Most practices, it is my understanding, now do not accept cash and do not accept checks. They do not accept cash. They do not want to be robbed. And they don't accept checks because a lot of times they've bounced and they've lost payment. So most practices, including the ones on Cape Cod and in the Boston area, only accept credit and debit cards. And if it is for a very large amount, they will accept a check issued by a bank. Online payments. For office visits, I'm not sure if there's a lot of online payments, but I do know if you go to urgent care and they haven't been able to calculate your bill before you leave, you pay your copay, and then you will receive a bill from them and you can go right online and pay the bill. Payment responsibility, the guarantor. You are responsible for your bills. You are responsible for your children. All right. And this is, again, responsibility for minors. Now, elderly patients or patients with disabilities may have a guarantor or a power of attorney that pays their bills. All right. And there are some things known as professional courtesy. Not a lot of that is done anymore. Medicare really clamped down on professional courtesy. It used to be that if you didn't have Medicare, you could visit your doctor. There was a doctor's office in the area that if you had to pay out of pocket, they would cut your bill in half. And then Medicare caught on to that and said that wasn't fair to the people who have Medicare. And so the federal government outlawed practices being able to lessen the amount of payment for patients who are paying cash. So professional courtesy is not seen a lot anymore. Preparing statements. We can prepare manual statements. We can prepare a patient's ledger card. We can prepare computerized generated statements, and that's a lot of what we get now are the computer generated statements. And a lot of things are done through independent billing services, not in the practice itself. Think about where you go for your care. Do you ever get a bill, and is it from the practice or from an overall billing service? I think Cape Cod Healthcare now uses a billing service out of Florida and payment service out of Boston. So think about that and talk to your friends and see where their bills come from. It'd be quite interesting. How do we manage the billing cycles? Cycle billing has to do with the time the bill is generated until it's completely paid. So what is the billing cycle? Usually, if a bill is generated on the 10th of the month, the billing cycle is a 30-day cycle. So the 10th of every month or 28-day cycle, it is looked at to see if it's been paid or not paid. What is the statute of limitations on an open book account? And I would like you to look this up. I would like you to take the time to look up the statute of limitations for Connecticut. All right. And it's a state law. It has a time limit when a collection suit on a past due account can legally be filed. So how long, I want you to look up the statute of limitations for Connecticut or Massachusetts on an open book account. on a written contract account and on a single entry account? What are the statute of limitations in your state? Using collection techniques. Most practices do not use collection techniques, although they will use the billing service will use these collection techniques, and they can be as simple as a telephone call and follow-up statements and collection letters. And payments after the patient visit. We like to have most payments made at the patient visit. What do we do with return checks that are returned for lack of money? And what about refunding overpayments or a credit balance? Most services are quick to refund overpayments, whether it goes directly to the insurance company, which does happen, or it goes to the patient. Sometimes, again, remember when I was explaining explanation of benefits a couple lectures back on people with Medicare who get this explanation of benefits and think that they owe $400 for their service, and because Medicare hasn't paid $400, they go ahead and pay the bill. And then now we're going to have a credit balance because they don't owe $400 because that $400 is going to their supplemental insurance. So we have to take care of these credit balances, whether it's in a hospital or it's an outpatient service, and refund the insurance company or the patient. What about uncollectible accounts? What happens with uncollectible accounts? What are we going to do with uncollectible accounts? Sometimes there's patients who will not or cannot pay for their accounts, and these are known as uncollectible. If they're never going to get the money, and we know we're never going to get the money because maybe a patient's passed away or the patient's left town or we just cannot collect it, then we will write it off as a loss. All right. At the end of the day, we're going to tally how much we collected during that day and how much was billed. So we're going to have an end of day report. And what about preparing an age analysis? An age analysis will tell you what the outstanding collection monies are on a 30, 60, 90, and 100-day basis, 120-day basis. And it can be from the insurance companies. So every 30 days or every day, your billing department will look at an age analysis or an aging report. And it'll come up and say, the bill for Sarah Jones has been outstanding with mail handlers insurance for 72 days. It's time to send an inquiry. Or it'll say the bill for Tom Jones has been outstanding for 10 days. We just billed it 10 days ago, so we're not going to look at that. But that's what an aging analysis is all about. How long has the bill been not paid? How about laws that govern credit and collections? We have the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act of 1977. All right. And what this says is it says that you can't call a patient before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. And if you do, it can be considered harassment. And this is part of the Telephone Consumer Protection Act of 1991. And it protects subscribers from unwanted telephone calls, from solicitors, telemarketing. And a lot of telemarketers are on auto dial, and you'll get a phone call. All you have to do is say, don't ever call this number again, and they won't call you. And you can tell collection agencies the same thing. Don't ever call me again. They'll call you at work. They'll call you at home. They'll call your parents. They'll call everybody they can. And all they have to do is say, do not call me again. So how about observing professional guidelines for finance charges and late charges? All right. There are laws in place according to the AMA. We can assess finance charges for late payments. That if the bill isn't paid over 30 days, we can start adding on an interest. There's an interest rate for late fees and charges. It is appropriate to do that. Outside collection agencies, it is my understanding, having worked in finance many years ago, that if we do have to send a bill to an outside collection agency, it's usually for a large amount because there is an understanding that the collection agency will keep between 35 and 50% of what is collected. That is how they get their money. And how are we ensuring accounts receivable? How do we get paid? We make sure that the bills and statements are sent out to the insurance companies and the vendors and the patients on a timely basis. What about credit arrangements? Here are some laws governing the extension of credit. All right. We have the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the ECOA. You cannot deny credit on the basis of sex, race, religion, national origin, marital status, or age, and it can't be denied because the patient receives public assistance or has exercised their rights under their Consumer Credit Protection Act, such as disputing a credit card bill. All right. Performing a credit check. Yes, we can perform credit checks, especially in employment verification. And we must have current information. How about employment verification? We can and will verify that you are employed. What about a credit bureau report? How many of you have seen that when you applied for your financial aid at the school, a credit report was pulled? All right. When you go to school, a credit report is pulled. When you go to work, a credit report is pulled. And it will tell you at the end of the application, a credit bureau report will be collected for this application. And what about extending credit? We can extend credit. We can come up with reasons to extend credit to people. What about the Truth in Lending Act? The Truth in Lending statement is a disclosure statement, all right? And this definitely involves Truth in Lending statement. It's under the Consumer Credit Protection Act, and it covers credit agreements that involve more than 4 payments. And what it does is you sit down with your patient who owes you $7,000, and you will sit down and come up with a payment plan. And then both of you need to adhere to the payment plan. What about collection problems? Common collection problems include hardship cases, poor, uninsured, underinsured, or elderly on unlimited income. Sometimes we can write those off or allow them to pay $5 a month. Do you know that if you have a medical bill that you can't afford to pay, if you pay $5 a month on the same date of every month, then you cannot be sent to collection? That's federal law. How about patient relocation and address changes? This is known as skips with no forwarding address. What do we do with these balances? Some are written off. Some are written off. Now, banking and negotiable instruments. All right, we're going to look at different types of banking tasks. Check. A check is a bank draft or an order for payment. And the payer, you write the check. And it's negotiable, able to transfer $10 to the doctor's office. And there's an ABA number, and it identifies a geographic area. All right? So a check is a bank draft. Accepting checks. Does your office accept third-party checks? Does your office accept power of attorney checks? Again, most practices no longer accept checks from patients, but they will accept them from vendors. Checking, we have checking account types. There are different types of checking accounts. Endorsing checks. Well, let's take a minute and think about checking accounts. What kind of? There's personal, there's business accounts. So you can have a personal account or a business account. Those are types of checking accounts, all right? Endorsing checks, preparing a bank deposit. How do we do this? If you've never written a check before, your instructor is going to show you how to write a check. Blank endorsement is a simple signature. So I wrote a check to the electric company for $40 and I signed it. That is a simple signature. Restrictive endorsement, that check has to be signed by one person and one person only. If I am writing your payroll paychecks, I am the manager and I'm the only one who can sign them. That's a restrictive endorsement. A special endorsement is a third-party signature. Say you got in a car accident and your insurance company sent you checks to have the car fixed. So you take it to the auto body shop, and this is a third-party signature that you're handing the checks over to them. Qualified endorsement is accepted for another. So my endorsement is good for my son because right now he's in surgery. All right. Do you know how to complete a deposit slip? Do you know how to make a deposit? And what about electronic deposits? You're going to practice all of that in this section. Reconciling the bank statement. Reconciliation of the bank statement, which means we want to look and see if all the money we put, if the checks we wrote have been cleared and the checks we deposit have been added to our account. That's what reconciliation is. So you check the closing balance of the previous month against the opening balance of the current month. And now you do a reconciliation worksheet, and you're going to be working on these in class. You check deposits against bank statements. So all the deposits that you made, were they cleared by the bank? Now you compare the redeemed checks with the bank statement to make sure that they've been cleared, and are there any outstanding checks that haven't cleared yet? And now you double check for errors. So first we want to see if all the deposits were credited to our account. Then we want to see if all the checks we deposited have been cleared. And record the deposits that are made each day. We record the bills that are paid. We display the checkbook in the electronic banking system like QuickBooks, and we balance the QuickBooks as well. Accounts payable and managing disbursements. Accounts payable are what we pay out to keep the business running. Your paycheck is an accounts payable example, or paying utility, paying the suppliers, all right? So these are called disbursements, and we're writing checks, and we keep track of these checks. Understanding financial summaries. So a statement of income and expense. You can do this for the last week. How much money did you get in, and how much money did you spend? This is called a cash flow statement. How much cash do we have in the practice, and how much have we spent? And we come up with these trial balances. They call them a trial balance. All right. And a trial balance is when you kind of do a quick review of the day or the week to see if things are in the right place. Very rarely will anything ever balance. You will never see the same numbers on a given day because deposits aren't always cleared within 24 hours and payments aren't always made accordingly. So your trial balance may be just a day worksheet to see what's going on in the money part of your practice. We'll work on these as a group. And that ends today's lecture on patient collections and financial practice.